guys, how's it going? I'm going to be working on trimming some boxwoods today. So I'm out in the greenhouse and I've got all of these boxwood cones right here that I need to work on shaping up, and then I also have some out in the landscape that I'm going to be working on. And I've been watching the forecast super closely. It looks like we're past the danger of any kind of frost. Our low temps are about in the 40s somewhere, and it's getting into the 60s during the day. It's just a beautiful time of year and a great time to be pruning anything topiary, evergreen, hedging, any of that sort of thing, when they're not going to be subjected to any kind of extreme weather. So no extreme cold temperatures and no extreme heat. So here in Eastern Oregon, we're zone 5 high desert, so it typically gets really cold in the winter and really hot in the summertime. So we usually have like a 2-month window both in the spring and the fall to get our pruning done. And you want to make sure to do it where those plants have maybe a week or two to acclimate before you have any big shift in temperature. So like if it gets toward the end of May and I haven't got my pruning done, I'm usually in a huge hurry, because all of a sudden that time of year it can go from like 80 degrees to above 100 like in the course of a week. And if you're still pruning your evergreens that time of year and exposing that really tender undergrowth that hasn't been exposed previously to the wind and the heat and the sun, it can cause a lot of damage in terms of burning, and it can look really bad. So now's the time. Let me show you the tool I'm going to use. So here's my setup. I did put a huge tarp out, it's the only size I could find, to catch all of my trimmings so it's not a big pain to clean up. I'm going to be using my DeWalt hedge trimmer. This one has a 22-inch blade. It's battery operated and really lightweight, so I can get a lot more done because it doesn't tire me out as bad. And basically I just want to take these cones and make them a little bit sharper. They look really good. They've been putting on lots of new growth, and they have been wintering over in the greenhouse, so after I'm done pruning them, I'm going to leave them in here for just a little bit before I put them outside. I'm also dealing with all kinds of shapes. Like you can see, one of them is a little bit like it's not full on the bottom. I've got some wild branches. Some are really bushy. That one's really flat on that side. And that's kind of what you find with baby plants like this. And they're not baby plants, they're older boxwoods because they're nice size. I got these for $10 a piece at the end of the season, and so I snagged them. But they haven't been really trained hard to be really full, like topiary type shapes. So that's the journey they're gonna start today. So they may not look like great this first year, or maybe not even the second year, because getting things to be very identical in shape and size can take several seasons to get them kind of where you want them. So anyway, I think I'm just gonna set up the camera and get these all trimmed up. So much better. So there they are, looking fairly similar, fairly uniform. We've got slightly different shapes and heights at this point, but with training throughout the next couple of years, I'm hoping to get them all as similar as possible. These are all going on the west side of our house in the new planting area. I left this one in place because I wanted to show you what happens sometimes. So I had to grab some saucers I had nearby to prop the pot up, because this boxwood was growing at a slant in the pot. And had I tried to trim it while it was in a slant, it would have ruined the leader of the plant, because there's usually like one, you can see through the branches here that there's one like dominant branch that comes up through the center of the plant, and that is the leader. And you don't really want to be messing with that too much because you want it to go all the way to the top. So when I propped the pot so that the plant was pointing in the proper direction, it actually turned into a really nice plant. So just imagine the soil, like you won't know that any of that ever existed, and I'll just plant it kind of at a slant inside the hole. Also, look at what the tarp does. Like, I'm just going to be able to gather up this tarp and toss all of the boxwood clippings instead of having to pick them up off of the gravel, which I've been there before and it's not a lot of fun. All right, so I'm grabbing my hedge trimmers and we're gonna head out to our pergola area where I planted 3, 6, 9, 10, 11 boxwoods last year. I'm kind of lining both sides of that pergola area, and I want to trim them into really tight spheres. Again, this is going to be the first time I've trimmed these, so this is going to also be a training process. All right, you can see I'm kind of walking down our pellet walkway right now. This is our pergola, and I planted 6 boxwoods on this side, so 3 between each opening, and I want to train these to be really tight spheres, like really thick, tight spheres. There's 3 in that opening, and then on this other side there's only 2, and I had to plant smaller ones because I didn't have 5-gallon size for that area there. But I had to leave this open for a walkway, which I still have yet to center. Anyway, we'll see what we can do today to get these shaped up. I'm not sure how this is gonna go, you guys. It's starting to get really windy out here. Oh my word. All right guys, it's a new day. Obviously I'm in new clothes and the weather is much better. So last night it got so stormy that I ended up having just to pack it in and call it a day. I put a little cloth around my boxwood to catch the clippings and it just kept blowing away. So it just was not working out. But this is where I'm gonna start. So you can see the 3 here. Let me get down so you can see the size difference. The one in the middle is the biggest. So I'm gonna eventually hopefully have these all the same size. So today is just kind of the initial training process. So here we go. Don't those look just so much better? I mean, even for a first year of training, just to get that woolliness off and tighten them up just a little bit just helps so much. And you will notice they're not all even. Like this one right here on the top part, and I don't know if you can really see, but there's a lot of airiness inside. But I didn't want to take it down all the way to that, otherwise I would have been left with a tiny little sphere. So I just let it stay, you know, a little tiny bit fluffier than like this one right here. This one was a lot thicker on the top. But you kind of look down here and you can see all the openness that we've got going on in here where it needs to thicken up as well. But when you prune them regularly, like I'll probably prune them one more time this spring, like maybe mid-May, mid to late May, and then I'll wait probably till the end of summer when it starts to cool off to trim them again. But if you just keep on it, they will thicken up eventually. So that's that one little section. Here's the 2 little guys, and the interesting thing about this area is we just removed 2 trees. There was a hawthorn here that was just riddled with blight that we took out. There was a juniper here that also had blight that we took out. So these are gonna get a lot more sun this year than they did last year, and this side as well. So these were actually 5-gallon size when I started and planted them. These over here were just 2-gallon, but all 5 of them on this far end of the pergola just naturally stayed a little bit smaller because they got more shade. And the wonderful thing about boxwood is that it can handle both sun and shade, but you can see kind of the growth difference. The boxwood in the shade just won't grow quite as quickly as the ones in the sun, but that means you won't have to be trimming them quite as often. Eventually I want to have all of these be the same size, and it'll be interesting to see this year without those trees what kind of difference we're gonna see. So these little pieces of cloth are so handy because you can see all of the junk they caught. So I would put, you know, the one on one side and then the other piece on the other side, and then I just move them down as I went, and that's everything that I was able to collect. And of course, you know, some little pieces kind of flipped out here or there, but I'm not gonna even get my rake out for that. Like those will dry up and kind of just turn into compost, right? It saves me a ton of time to do it that way. So I've got other boxwoods around the property. There are a couple, like this one was here when we moved in, and we've got quite a bit of death going on this side, which is kind of sad. And it's right beneath a pine tree, so it catches tons and tons of pine needles. So I'm trying to battle whether or not to take this one out or just leave it, trim it up and see what happens, give it some good fertilizer, because it does look pretty from this side. Then I've got one here. We've got some sprinter boxwoods that are looking really nice, but I also want to kind of tighten those up as well. And then we've got the big boxwood that we dug out of our front flower beds like a couple of years ago, and everybody thought it would die, and it didn't. It still lives. This whole area around the gazebo done, which consisted mainly of cone-shaped boxwoods and then the round ones, most of which I'm just starting to train right now. So it's kind of one of those things that it's just a slow process. I do follow a couple of Instagram accounts that are super inspirational. We'll put them either down below or flash them on the screen. But it shows you kind of the evolution of the topiary, because sometimes, you know, you let one kind of run away from you and you've got to do some major rehabilitation to get it back to its former shape, and that can take multiple seasons to do. And when you're starting with a brand new, like, kind of baby plant and wanting it to grow into a specific shape, it's also kind of a lesson in patience. And that's kind of what I'm doing today, because you guys know we pulled out so many privet hedges and so many things that were like dying on their way out or just way too big for the area. So we've started with all brand new plants. Like up in Versailles, I'm actually going to start training those boxwoods into a hedge form this year, and they were planted summer before last. So I let them just kind of do their thing and grow. They're not, some of them are kind of touching, but I just want to start sort of shaping them up this year. And then my existing hedges that are like the squared off hedges, I actually am going to let them put on a little bit more growth before I go in and hedge them this spring, because I'm working on some uneven spots. I also have to replace 3 boxwoods that died out. They were, when we moved in, they were like kind of looking yellowish. We applied iron. I actually had to treat them for mites, and they just kind of slowly declined. We tried to kind of revive them, but it didn't work. So I'm actually going to pull those 3 out, replace them inside of a mature hedge. So it's going to look a little weird this year, but we'll try to get that on video when I do that, because, you know, maybe some of you are dealing with the same thing. So basically, I just wanted to show you how I'm starting to hedge my stuff this spring, and there are several things that are good for topiary or shaped kind of plants. I mean, you can shape anything, really. Anything that's woody, particularly things that are evergreen, like boxwood, yew, ilex. So there's some holly like gembox and strongbox that are amazing, and I'll show you those here in a second. I have them in cans. They're out by my greenhouse, and I'm going to be planting them this year. So if you live in an area where you deal with boxwood blight, these might be a really good option for you. In our area, we also use a lot of juniper, arborvitae for topiary, and they do really well for us here in Zone 5. I know every area is different. I know some of you get to use laurel, which is not hardy enough to live in my area, but I'm gonna head out to the greenhouse. Actually, wait a minute, let me show you what I did out here by the gazebo quick. I got distracted by all my chatter. I went ahead and kind of started to train these sprinter boxwoods right here, and I think they turned out pretty good. They were looking a little wild. They were kind of growing straight upright. So they look pretty nice. I am leaving this as a winter gem, and I'm gonna leave it because it looks like a macaroon right now. I don't really want that. So I'm gonna let it grow a little bit because I would like to eventually have it be a sphere so I can plant it out in the landscape somewhere. This boxwood right here will keep for now, and it shaped up pretty nicely. The back, not so great. But maybe I can plant like a hosta right there or something to disguise it. Kind of the same thing for this one. It's shaped up nice from the front. We have a little bit of gap in the back, but I fertilized it real well the other day, so I'm hoping it'll start filling in. That's a nice little shape. This one, I don't think I remember to turn the camera on, but it was pretty mangy. This is actually one I'm going to be digging up and putting in a container or planting somewhere else here pretty soon, because you might notice we had pavers all the way around this flower bed that are now gone. And then all of this is going, and we're gonna do a little bit of redefining up here, you guys. It should be a pretty fun project. We planted the North Pole Arborvitae topiary spiral. So yeah, that's a good example of an arborvitae trimmed into a shape. And we had planted a couple of sweet spires that did not make it. And it could have been a water issue, we're not sure. And then I went ahead and trimmed up these cones right here, which were really mangy. And these I'm going to be treating for iron deficiency, I think is what's going on here. We've got some yellowing of leaves, but like veining, there's still green veining in them, which is typical of chlorosis. So they're looking a little, there's some hard water on them. That's what all the white is, like on their leaves. You can see that white. The grass sprinklers hit these, so I'm gonna try to redirect those. And then I'll be putting some iron on these to hopefully recuperate them, but they shaped up really nice. Okay, so now we'll head out to the greenhouse. I'll show you the 2 hollies, and then I think we'll be done, since this video took a little bit longer than I was expecting it to take because of weather. And that's one of the things, you guys, about making gardening videos. The weather can be your best friend or your worst friend. And sometimes you just have to call it a day and quit. And some days you can't even go outside and film. It's just crazy. So, okay, let me find these. So this one right here, this is called Strongbox Ilex Evergreen Shrub. I featured it in a video where I planted one of these, kind of planted one in a basket and put it by our back door for winter interest. And I just love the foliage on it. I think it's so pretty. And I believe they grow about 2 to 3 feet tall and wide. So just a very manageable size shrub. And then right behind them, here are the Gem Box. And I'm not even sure which one is my favorite. I mean, they both have beautiful foliage, but this, I like the boldness, like the really round habit and the boldness of the foliage. This one also grows 2 to 3 feet tall and wide. So I'm really looking forward to using these in some projects. I'm actually going to use a few of them in one of our off-site kind of home makeovers we're going to do this year. And then I'm hoping to use a couple in containers and a couple in landscapes and see how they do for me here in our climate. So anyway, I hope this video was helpful or interesting. I have a lot more work to do. I have a lot more boxwoods just hanging out in random flower beds that I'm going to be trimming up kind of as I go around and do my garden maintenance this spring, but I think I got a good jump on it today. So anyway, thank you guys so much for hanging out and watching this video today, and we will see you in the next one. Bye.